Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me, as always, is a man who told you not to swim in the Potomac River. Here is the captain.
I'm also here to remind you that soup is not a meal. It's good to be seen and good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
This week, we are very excited to be featuring Duel at Dawn by the bright and shiny folks at wonderful Sun King Brewery. Duel at Dawn is a revolutionary era American ale, also described as a historical beer. What does that all mean? Nobody knows, but it was brewed in celebration of Broadway Indianapolis's presentation of the world-famous Hamilton. I love Hamilton, and I'm also digging this beer. It's got an old school look and taste. It reminds me of my days of hunting small batch and import beers way before the explosion of craft beers. It's aromatic, it's wheat, it's sweet, and just like the captain, it's a little nutty. Garage grade 3 3/4 bottle caps out of 5, and let's raise a glass to some of our bright and shiny garage friends. First up, a cheers to Louisiana in Minnesota.
And a big we like you jib goes out to Andrew in Louisville, Kentucky.
Double-fisted 2 tall cans in the air. Here's a cheers to Trip and Hazel from Lawrence, Kansas.
Yes, and a big shout out to Heather in Norcross, Georgia.
And here's a cheers to Parker and Karen hiding out in Minneapolis. And last but certainly not least, we have Aaron and Ken in McMinnville, Tennessee. Everyone we just mentioned went to truecrimegarage.com, donated to the beer fund, and for that, we thank you.
Yeah, BWERUN beer run for everything true crime. Check out truecrimegarage.com. And Colonel, that's enough of the business.
All right, everybody gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime. There are few bonds that run as deep and enduring as the connection between sisters, even when the two share only one common parent, for example, a father. The relationship can often transcend blood and evolve into one of mutual affection, respect, and lasting friendship. It was surely this sincere, loving union that 26-year-old Nikki Collingbourne was seeking when she opened her heart and her home to her much older half-sister, Yvonne Kaler. Aside from a brief and unsuccessful period of less than a year, when Nikki moved to America to get to know her sister, the two remained largely estranged. That is until 2015, when Yvonne Kaler returned to her home country of England, and big-hearted Nikki couldn't resist offering her sister a place to stay. This is True Crime Garage. Nicola Collingbourne was known to friends as Nikki. Friends and family calling her Nikki. She was born in 1989 to parents Renee and Leonard. A kind, loving woman, the 26-year-old would do just about anything for her extensive family, which included sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews, along with her mom and dad. She had a half-sister, Yvonne Kaler, who is 27 years her elder, with whom she shared her father. But she had scarcely known her sister Yvonne, who was already an adult when Nikki was born, and Yvonne had moved to America while Nikki was still a toddler. Sadly, the two half-siblings lost their father in 2012, a loss that felt keenly by Nikki, who had been raised by him and her mother. Nikki worked as an assistant at a local preschool. She loved working with children and was a natural with them. She was kind, funny, and loving. Nikki's naturally bright and sunny nature drew all of the children in the family to her, and she was a central figure to her large extended family. Nikki also cared for her mother, Renee Hibbert Jones, driving her to and from her regular medical appointments at Lister Hospital. The hospital was about 5 miles from Nikki's flat in Ivell Court in Letchworth Garden City. Renee, her mother, she struggled with severe respiratory illness and was in poor health, depending on her daughter to help so she could attend her appointments. This is just further proof here, Captain, that this young woman, she's always reliable and she's selfless in nature.
Yeah, she tries to do right by others, but you have to remember, no good deed goes unpunished, my friend.
And we should note that Nikki was particularly close to two of her adult nieces. This is Jody and Leanne. In addition to a 5-year stint as an assistant at the Tiny Hands preschool, Nikki's Facebook profile lists her as having been a shop assistant and something known as a fire watch/hole watch, which are apparently separate attendant positions designed to protect workers in high-risk environments such as welding, cutting, or grinding. In essence, Nikki served as an emergency lookout for steam fitters and welders, identifying potential hazards and initiating an emergency response should one be needed. Perfectly on brand for her protective and giving nature.
I just want to point out, these are two places I want at work. Somewhere you could mangle your hands, and someplace known as Tiny Hands.
Earlier, we mentioned Nikki's half-sister. This is 53-year-old Yvonne Kaler. So we're going to go back a bit here, Captain, and set the table for our beautiful listeners. Yvonne Kaler was born in Britain in the early 1960s. She moved to the United States in the early 1990s. She found work there as a welder, a physically demanding job where she met the man she would eventually marry. Now, for decades, America was Yvonne Kaler's home. Kaler spent most of her adult life abroad before returning to the UK in 2015. Given the vast age gap between these two half-sisters and the fact that Nikki was just a toddler when Yvonne left for the United States, it's unlikely that they had formed any real meaningful relationship before Yvonne headed across the Atlantic. So while Yvonne was making her young adult life in the States, we have little Nikki growing up in the UK. As said, the two shared a father, but were separated by a 27-year age gap and the vast ocean between them. Far across the Atlantic, again, we have Nikki, the much younger half-sister, growing up in the UK. They were, for all intents and purposes, strangers, estranged by circumstance and Yvonne Kaler's decision to live abroad. This disconnect, no doubt, weighed heavily on the younger sister. Nikki yearned for a connection, a situation that Nikki would seek to correct the first chance she got. In September of 2011, the sisters would get that chance to reconnect when Nikki traveled to the United States. In an effort to get to know her half-sister she barely remembered, she traveled there. And filled with hope, Nikki made the journey to the United States to live with Yvonne, dreaming of finally building that sisterly bond that the two never had. The reality, though, fell devastatingly short of the dream. The reunion quickly deteriorated. So before long here, Captain, this reunion soured and a bitter fallout shattered any chance of a relationship. Some speculated that Yvonne Kaler was jealous of Nikki's life in the UK, particularly the strong relationship that she had with their father, a bond that Yvonne Kaler herself never had the chance to develop. But whatever the reason, the rift was so profound that in August of 2012, less than a year after arriving, tensions had escalated and the two clashed to the point that Nikki returned home to the United Kingdom.
Then 3 years later, in 2015, Kaler is going to return at 52 years of age to England.
And this will bring us closer to the start of our timeline here. So that's your background information. We now have both half-sisters living in the UK. There was some thought here, Captain, that Yvonne Kaler possibly may have returned due to some sort of back injury from her demanding job as a welder. Now, despite the previous tensions between the two and the unresolved nature of their relationship, Nikki, ever hopeful and very giving, kind person, she opened up her home to her older sister. And they initially stayed together at their late grandmother's house, but Nikki soon found her own place. This was a small apartment at flat number 16 in the Ivell Court block at Letchworth, Garden City. And so she invited her half-sister Yvonne Kaler to move in with her there at her flat. The peace between the two, this glorious living situation, maybe predictably, it didn't last. Just a few months into their new living arrangement, a ferocious argument erupted, leading Nikki to make the difficult decision to evict her half-sister Yvonne from the flat. The conflict escalated dramatically on the evening of October 3rd, 2015. Yvonne Kaler, thrown out of the apartment, went directly to the local police, accusing Nikki of assaulting her. Though officers suspected the complaint might be bogus, they were obligated to investigate the claim. So in the early hours of Sunday, October 4th, this is at 2:07 a.m., Nikki is arrested. During her interrogation, she gave a starkly different account of the evening's events. She explained to police that Yvonne Kaler had become highly agitated, and their argument spiraled out of control when Yvonne destroyed Nikki's iPad, smashing it to the ground. Nikki described her own attempts to remain calm as Yvonne Kaler lashed out, pinning her against a wall and threatening to kill her. This was the final straw. Nikki gathered her sister's belongings, took them to the front door, and told her to leave. In response, Yvonne grabbed a mop, threatened to shove it down Nikki's throat, and then grabbed Nikki's laptop and stormed out. As Nikki slammed the door shut, Yvonne Kaler began beating on it, trying to get back inside.
Now, first of all, I don't want to die by having somebody shove a mop down my throat. But if I'm following what's happening, so Nikki gets her own place. She invites her half sister to stay with her. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of people would know this, but in England, you have to have the right to rent. So it also could have been a situation where Kaler just didn't go through the necessary steps to be able to rent a place on her own. So that's maybe why Nikki felt obligated to give her a place to stay. And then I think there was also like whatever she was paying, she wasn't paying, and they weren't getting along. So this just escalates things even further.
Yes. And the result, according to what Nikki is telling police, is this violent altercation between the two, resulting in a busted iPad, and then Yvonne Kaler beating on the door after storming off with Nikki's laptop. So obviously, this is a direct contradiction to Yvonne's story, which she had told police, and that painted Nikki as the aggressor.
Right. And all you have to see as the police is the busted iPad and the missing laptop. And you go, well, somebody might not be telling you the whole truth here.
And I don't know if they interviewed other persons to sort out what happened here, but the result is going to be that the police found Nikki's version of this story much more credible. And the reason why I question if they had talked to other people is we do know that these two half-sisters are described as almost polar opposites, where Nikki is described as this person who is caring. She's a caregiver by nature. She likes helping other people. We see her inviting her half-sister into her flat to live there. And Yvonne Kaler is described as somebody who is quick-tempered, easily agitated, and gets upset quite easily to the point that she has been known to lash out.
Yeah, some people would say a real bitch-a-rooney.
Remember, Nikki was picked up based off of Yvonne's complaint to the police. After they hear her side of the story, find her version to be much more credible, Nikki is going to be released by police and was back at her flat by 8 p.m. that same evening. Now, when she gets back to her apartment, upon returning, she made a chilling discovery. The door frame was damaged, a clear sign of forced entry.
Right.
And of course, she's suspecting her sister was responsible. So she checked her belongings and realized that some of her items had been stolen. On October 6th, Nikki filed a formal complaint accusing Yvonne of burglary. Yvonne Kaler was arrested but denied everything. The investigation, however, quickly uncovered a link. Okay, so cell phone records connected Yvonne Kaler to a locksmith, a local locksmith named Barry Crosby. When police talked to Barry Crosby, he tells them that on October 4th, a woman had contacted him claiming to be locked out of her flat at Ivel Corner. He had accompanied this woman to the flat and then forced the door open at this woman's request.
Well, he shouldn't have done that.
Well, he's stating he believed that it was her home. Now,
right.
Months later, we're going to go out to December 30th, 2015. This Mr. Crosby positively identified Yvonne Kaler as being the woman that had hired him to force open the door to this flat. So he identifies Yvonne Kaler from an identity parade as that very customer.
Right. So Nikki is trying to charge her with burglary, but she's not charging her with assault?
Correct. That's my understanding here. I love the term identity parade. It sounds like Mardi Gras compared to here. Obviously, we have a police lineup or a photo lineup.
Yeah, or maybe it sounds like a Midwest emo song.
More evidence regarding the situation came forward. Nikki's mother, Renee Hibbert Jones, informed police that she had received a call from Yvonne Kaler on October 6th. In that call, she says that Yvonne had asked her to lie about who owned the property that Nikki had reported stolen. And phone records confirm the call took place, despite Yvonne later telling police that the call did not happen and that she did not ask Renee to cover for her or lie about the property.
Right. So basically what law enforcement is getting a sense of is Kaler's not going to tell us the full truth on any situation.
Exactly. On 3 different occasions regarding 3 different scenarios, they believe she's lied each time to them.
Well, like I said, she's a real bitch-a-rooney dooney.
Now, even while out on bail, apparently Yvonne Kaler could not stay away because in November of 2015, she violated a strict no contact order by calling her half-sister Nikki, saying, "We need to talk," before a frightened Nikki hung up the phone and then immediately reported the breach to police. Yvonne Kaler was subsequently charged with that burglary charge and attempting to pervert the course of justice. We're going to hear some fantastic terms like that here in this international true crime story.
Yeah, and I know there was a court order not to make contact, but they had a falling out before in America, so maybe this is just another falling out. And sometimes, even with family members you know very well, sometimes it takes a readjustment. So sometimes there's misunderstandings, and with family members, people go too far. So even though you have a court order, I'm going to say, hey, I understand why somebody would reach out, even if there is a court order, just to say, hey, can we fix this situation?
I get it, and I know what you're talking about, but I also feel like there's misunderstandings and there's falling outs, and then there's violent altercations with the threat of killing someone and ending one's life.
Yeah. Very bad that you break the iPad. Very bad you steal a laptop. But when people threaten other people's lives, and I know some people just go and in fights, you see it all the time on YouTube videos where some guy that doesn't even know the other guy, they get into a bar fight, and the one guy's going, I'm going to kill you. And does he actually mean that he's going to kill him? Probably not. But I think what we've learned over the years is just take every death threat to the most extreme, serious level you can, right? Start there to at least protect yourself. And if Kayla was really sorry, she could have contacted her mother. Mm-hmm. There's probably other people that she could have contacted and said, hey, I am sorry that it went down this way. I would just be curious of where Kayla was staying at the time. Because like I said, I think there's certain rules, and maybe because she was a citizen of England, she probably still had her status that maybe she could rent from some other place.
Well, and we've had a lot of discussions about no contact orders, strict no contact orders, especially lately here in the garage. And this is certainly, as you point out, Captain, a unique situation because they are blood relatives. I mean, they are sisters, half sisters, but they are sisters. And we all have experienced, I would believe most of us have experienced times where some family members don't get along. And I think the thing here is, though, regardless of how strict the no contact order is, there are means and ways and avenues for proper communication, right? That you could extend the olive branch without getting yourself in trouble. If you were to contact the police or attempt to get, I don't know how or who is in charge of signing off on these strict no contact orders in England, but here it's often a judge, and you can contact law enforcement. You can contact or attempt to contact a judge and say, look, I would like to, I know that we have a no contact order, but I would like to apologize, or I would like to try to mend fences here. I would, right. Can we set up a mediator and talk through a mediator? Can we have some kind of sit down meeting where maybe there is a member of law enforcement present so the other person doesn't have to feel threatened, and we can talk like civilized individuals. And for whatever reason, Yvonne didn't choose to use those avenues. And so what I think we're seeing here is, while Yvonne may have wanted to talk to cool things over, I don't suspect that's what she was attempting to do. But what we can see and surmise from these actions of these two is that Nikki did feel threatened by her much older half sister, and threatened to the point of she didn't want to talk to her, hangs up the phone, and immediately reports the breach to the local authorities.
Yeah, none of us were there the time that they got into a physical altercation. We weren't there when Kayla threatened Nikki, and so we won't know the severity of that or how Nikki felt about that attack or confrontation. All right, we are back. Cheers, mates. Hey, if you asked me to get a pair of underwear, I'm back in 2 seconds. Cheers to you and the back, and cheers to you, Colonel.
Cheers to you as well. I'm not sure what that means, but we venture on here.
Hey, if you have questions, you can ask the 8-ball.
It is what it is.
It is. No, but so when I was looking into this case, because like you said, Kayla moves to America and she works in America for a time period, and she's married. So then I'm assuming at some point she gets a divorce, or at least they're separated. Mm-hmm. And what I've kind of gathered from this, it seems like Nikki wanted to have some kind of relationship. Like you said, she had a relationship with her mom and the father, which Kayla didn't have. But I almost assume, this is just maybe I'm assuming too much, but it seems like a situation where Kayla's life wasn't going the way Kayla wanted her life to go. And she saw this young family member that I think she felt like, okay, I maybe exhausted all my resources and burned all my bridges here in America, and I've used as many individuals as I could. So now I'm going to try to use Nikki as a gateway to all the other family members so I can then use them and sponge off them. Real spongia.
Well, on April 16th, 2016, Yvonne formally pled not guilty at Cambridge Crown Court. Remember, she's still facing those charges. So that case is placed on an 8-week warned list, meaning her trial could begin at any point starting from May 23rd. For Nikki, this seems to be of no comfort to her. The knowledge that her sister was free on bail left her terrified. She began barricading herself inside of her home, piling furniture against the door each night. Keep in mind, she has accused her older sister of forcefully entering her home. And so she has, while she's afraid of this woman, she has that in the back of her mind that she made her way in here once, she could make her way in again. And she even sent photos of her makeshift fortress, if you want to call it that, to her nieces. Remember, she's very close to Jody and Leanne. She said to these nieces that she could only hope and pray that it would be enough to protect her if Yvonne decided to return to the flat to exact revenge.
Well, I agree with you. It's her breaking into the apartment that's of concern. But again, we have a physical altercation. We weren't there. We don't have video footage of it. So I think that was probably a lot more violent than what the police have said it was, or what Kayla even says it was, because that to me is what really struck the fear into Nikki.
Yeah. I'm just picturing Yvonne Kayla as the big bad wolf, huffing and puffing and blow your house in. The morning of May 23rd, 2016 arrived. This would be the first day the trial could be called. Nikki started her day off by taking her mother, Renee, to her regular doctor's appointment. This is at Lister Hospital. Again, this is very close to her home, of course, promising to return later that day to pick her mother up. After dropping off her mother, Nikki returned home to her flat, number 16. Later that afternoon, a worried Renee called her granddaughter, Jody. Nikki had not returned to pick her up from the hospital. And also, she's not answering her phone. And of course, this is completely out of character for the otherwise dependable and thoughtful Nikki. Jody tried calling and texting her aunt, but there was no response. So then she drives to the flat that evening.
Right.
But upon seeing Nikki's car parked in its usual spot, she believes that everything is fine and that maybe her aunt just needed some space. So she decided to give her that space and she leaves. But the next day, with still no word from Nikki, the family's concern turned to panic. 3 family members used a spare key to enter Nikki's flat that evening. They were met with a horrifying sight. Nikki's lifeless body was on the kitchen floor, clad only in her underwear. Nikki was found lying face up on the floor of her kitchen, and a grotesque amount of blood pooling around her. The 26-year-old is positioned on her back, her feet facing the door, a discarded bath towel on the floor in the hall. Scattered on the floor around her are numerous shards of ceramic pottery. A knife is also found in a bottle of bleach, and Nikki's wrists were scored with deep, deliberate wounds, leaving family members to wonder whether their beloved Nikki could have possibly taken her own life. Curiously, Nikki also held a small brush by its handle in her right hand, the type of brush that comes with a dustpan and brush set. The family members dialed 999, the British equivalent of 911, and police arrive at the scene just minutes later.
Well, if you're ever visiting the UK, you can call 911 and it will work. So that's a good thing. So you don't have to remember what did you say, 999?
We will be visiting the UK for CrimeCon UK in October. Our promo code TCG, save some cash, save some pounds, if you will.
Well, so back to Nikki's case, you have, if it was the Ellen Greenberg case, they would have just ruled it a suicide and moved on.
Moved on, yeah. That's
looks
how we
like
do
a
it in
suicide
the States.
to me.
That's how we do it in the States.
But like you said, there's these shards of glass, and I have a couple of thoughts on the bleach. It makes you wonder, was Nikki going to take a shower? Was she cleaning in the bathroom? Or was this a homicide scene that somebody was trying to use the bleach to clean up? If they were trying to clean up, they weren't doing a good job or didn't do a good job. And this ceramic shards of glass, this is coming from a cooking pot that was shaped like a chicken. And I believe law enforcement actually pieced back the pottery back together.
Yes, they did, almost like a jigsaw puzzle. And from my understanding here, Captain, at the scene, we have a bathtub that is partially filled with water or filled with water. And the thought was that she would have been attempting to get ready to take a bath. And like you had said, the broken pieces would turn out to be fragments of a chicken-shaped kitchen pot or casserole dish. So we have Detective Inspector Graham McMillan of the Beds, short for Bedfordshire Police Department, arrives on the scene after the family calls emergency services. He takes one look at Nikki lying on the floor, wrist brutally slashed, and concurs that it might be a suicide. Given the brush in Nikki's hand, law enforcement also surmise it could possibly be that she accidentally cut herself while attempting to clean up. But nevertheless, thankfully, police investigate the crime scene, recovering ceramic shards and other evidence for forensic examination. The body is removed and sent for autopsy, but the postmortem told a different story, and the evidence found would reveal a very different outcome than suicide or accidental death.
Yeah, again, in the Ellen Greenberg case, like the autopsy, was that done correctly? Don't think so. Here they're saying, well, we're doing the autopsy, and so now we're getting evidence that she most likely didn't take her own life. But the other key piece of evidence that they didn't have in the Ellen Greenberg case is we have CCTV footage of the hallways of the apartments on that floor, where they did have some surveillance in the apartment of the Ellen Greenberg case, but not on that floor.
Yes, and we're going to dive into that. I want to get into this pathology report. That the pathology report is inconclusive in terms of pointing to a single injury that caused Nikki's death, but it absolutely indicates foul play at the hands of another. There was a gash on the back of her head, approximately 4 centimeters in length, with a few parallel cuts along the back of her neck. So her skull had been fractured, but it could not be confirmed that it was severe enough to kill her. However, Nikki was hit with such force that it was enough to render her unconscious. Pathologists suspect that she had been attacked by a third party who picked up something ceramic with both hands and wielded it as a weapon, striking her forcefully on the back of her head. Additionally, the post-mortem reveals her wounds were not self-inflicted. It is concluded that someone had possibly staged the scene to make it appear as a suicide or possibly an accident. In the end, it was determined that Nikki had suffered fatal wounds by the violent actions of a third party, as stated in the report. In other words, Nikki Collingbourne had been murdered.
Yeah, so if I'm picking up what you're putting down, these marks or cuts to her wrist are possibly done after the initial attack.
Correct. So they determine what they couldn't see at the scene is this trauma to the back of her head, to the back of the skull.
Right.
And again, they're able to determine that she would have been knocked out, and therefore she didn't accidentally cut herself. She didn't purposely cut herself. Someone had knocked her out and then used the knife on the wrist.
Yeah, and I think if you're an investigator, you go into this scene and you see her laying there, like you said, she's only in her underwear, and there is a towel nearby. So you have, again, some possibility that it could be a suicide, or is it a homicide? And then because she's found with basically no clothes on, you think maybe it could be a sexually motivated crime until you see that the bath water, to me anyways, right?
And because, the towel. Yeah.
Right. And so to me, it's like, okay. And then the location of her is basically in the entranceway of her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go, okay, well, now we're putting the pieces of the story together. She looks like she's about ready to take a bath, and she hears something at the door, or somebody's knocking at the door. So now she has to answer the door. And so that's where you need to start asking for ear witnesses and eyewitnesses, and then collecting any camera footage that you can.
And I don't want to I'm not trying to make light of this at all, but this is so much like out of an old Matlock storyline, where you show up to the scene and you're trying to piece together what happened, pun intended, because they have to piece together this chicken pot casserole dish. But you're looking at the scene and you're like, okay, what's going on here? Was she filling up the tub? And a lot of times, unfortunately, when people take their own lives, slit their wrists, they do it in the bathtub. And so was that what our victim here was doing? Or did she knock this pot over? She's attempting to clean it up and then accidentally cuts herself. You're trying to sort it out without the knowledge of that massive wound or that terrible head injury. And then once you discover that head injury, you're now going, well, she probably was in the process of getting ready to take a bath. Right. And something interrupted that. What could have interrupted that? So let's get into this investigation and down the road that you were going here, Captain. We have the beds. I'm going to shorten these nicknames here. The beds, the CAMS, and the Hertz Major Crime Unit. This is a Triforce collaboration of regional police departments. They take over the case. Forensic analysis began to piece the puzzle together. Blood found on shards of the broken ceramic pieces that were found at the scene, the chicken pot, contained DNA from 2 people. So one sample, of course, matched our victim, Nikki, and 4 other samples matched an unknown individual. A tiny amount of DNA that did not belong to the victim was also found on that knife that was in the bleach bucket. And police recovered a letter that was discovered in the flat in which Nikki had told her doctor she was living in extreme fear of her half-sister, Yvonne Kaler. Now, the breakthrough in this case came from the CCTV footage, the closed-circuit TV footage that the captain had referenced.
Well, and also law enforcement is going to find out pretty quickly, there's a protective order against Kaler, and that Nikki basically said she burglarized my apartment. So now we have these charges. So they're going to get this connection to Kaler pretty quickly.
Investigators watched footage from the morning of the now determined to be murder. And what are they seeing on this footage? They see shortly before 8:30 a.m., a figure appeared in the lobby of Ivel Court. It was apparently a man dressed in a high visibility jacket with ginger hair, glasses, and a beard. He walked directly to Nikki's door and knocks on the door. Nikki answered the door, and as we now know, she was getting ready for a bath, answers the door wearing a towel. Nikki, probably startled, so she frantically, I'm guessing, tries to slam the door shut, but it's of no use because the larger and stronger figure forced their way inside the home. Now, this same individual is later seen leaving Nikki's flat. This would be several hours later, this time carrying a bag with them, which they did not have on the way in to the flat.
Yeah, so this individual's there at the time of the murder. They have taken items with them, not only just the still images, but even the video footage. Like, to me, it just looks like a guy in his, maybe I'd say mid-40s, a little overweight, wearing work boots, almost like a work outfit.
If you had me, and I think you'll agree with me, Captain, if you had me look at it through very blurred vision, I would say it's a man, right? And then when you look at it more closely, it appears to be a person in disguise. That's going to be really the driver for this investigation as to where it's going to take them. The investigation is going to take them. Like you said, they already have a lot of things to point them in the direction of the sister, of the half sister, with the exception of, well, this, for most parts, appears to be a man on the CCTV footage.
Yeah. But then once you start looking at the build of this individual and the height of this individual, you start going, like you said, and also like you have almost like reddish hair, like reddish brown hair, like a wig, and then like this really dark brown beard, and then these weird glasses. So I think once you start looking at the height and the weight and comparing that with Kaler, you start going, is this not a man, but is this Kaler in disguise?
Well, what they get is they call in Nikki's nieces, the two that she's close to, Jody and Leanne. The police show the CCTV footage separately to both of these women, and both of them have a very similar reaction, like immediately. So Leanne instinctively says, that's not a man I'm seeing. That appears to be a woman in disguise. And then Jody is even more certain about what she believes she's seeing. She says that not only is that a man, a woman in disguise dressed as a man, she says, that's my aunt, Yvonne Kaler, padded up and masquerading as a man in the video. And so police are going to arrest Yvonne Kaler on suspicion of murder. Now, while she's in custody, they're going to talk with her. A search of her phone and laptop revealed she had been looking up flights to America via Spain, so probably planning to flee the country. And when she's confronted with this CCTV footage, they show her the same video. And they say, we got people telling us that that's you in this video. And she says, this is not me. And her words were, quote, "I may be fat, but I'm not bow-legged." I may be fat, but I'm not bow-legged. And she insisted.
It's weird because she has a British accent, but she kind of sounds like a hillbilly version of a British accent.
I was going to attempt to do that until you said hillbilly version. I have no idea how. Anyway, yeah. To spare the listeners my poor...
but yeah, I'm not bow-legged.
But I'm not bow-legged. Now, so she insists that what she's seeing in the video is a man.
Yeah.
And she says that if it were her, because they're like, no, this is you. Come on now. We know this is you. And she goes, no, if it were me, the boobs would be sticking out on the figure that you're seeing here.
Yeah.
But she can deny like she has before, but her denials crumble quickly because lab results are going to come back. They got blood on 4 pieces of that ceramic chicken pot, which was matched to Yvonne Kaler.
Right.
And they theorize that while she was smart enough to remove pieces of that ceramic casserole dish, the chicken pot, that she believed may have contained her blood, she was dumb enough to leave a few pieces behind that did in fact contain her blood, placing her at the scene of that attack and therefore the murder.
But this drives me a little crazy because we know that she had to put some time and effort into gathering up items to create a disguise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing to go, hey, well, I got some black pants, I'll put those on. But you got to get some kind of worker vest. You got to get a wig. You got to put your hair up. You got to get some glasses. You got to get a beard. And then you commit this crime, and we got this bottle of bleach. So if we view that as evidence that she's trying to clean up the murder scene, it seems like she went to all these great lengths to get in. And I don't even think that the disguise was to have a ruse against Nikki.
No, I think it was just to dress herself up enough for the cameras.
Exactly.
And that's what police would later say. You're spot on here, my friend, because police would later say, like, we think that based off of what we could see when Nikki answers the door and her reaction to what she's seeing, that she must have realized, oh, snap, I just opened up the door and this person's in disguise. Why would they be in disguise? Oh, not only are they in disguise, but it appears to be my angry, violent sister in a strange disguise. Now, this is going to lead to what's very quickly becoming one of my favorite things. Another identity parade. I hope they throw candy at these. So on August 25th, so let me go back just a second here. I'm jumping the gun. On May 28th, 2016, Yvonne Kaler is formally charged with the murder of her half-sister. Tragically, in the weeks that follow the murder, Nikki's mother, Renee Hibbert Jones, passed away. On August 25th, 2016, the owners of the Harley Quinn Costume Hire, name of a store, this is Susan Jones and Richard Rosendale, they pick Yvonne Kaler out of an identity parade as a woman who was a customer in their store, and they say she was in there buying the disguise that she would use to commit the murder back on April 22nd.
Wow.
So, yeah, so here's a little more context for that story. So apparently Yvonne Kaler is making preparations. So this is an indicator of first degree premeditated murder.
Right.
Because this takes place in April. On April 22nd, 2016, the owners of the store say Yvonne Kaler walked into their Harley Quinn Costume Hire. This is a fancy costume/dress shop. And she tells them that she's looking for costumes for herself and for a man. That she's there to buy some costumes. And she leaves the store having purchased a curly ginger wig, a pair of heavy framed glasses, and a Van Dyke style beard and goatee. So with these purchased items here, Captain, with this disguise and some padding to alter her figure, remember the boobs can't stick out, and a high visibility workman's jacket, Yvonne Kaler would become unrecognizable as a woman via CCTV footage or cameras or maybe even the casual observer, but apparently not to her half sister.
Well, just back to the premeditation. Yes, buying the costume in April, it's like, got her, instead of got him, got her. But I would say dressing up and going to the apartment, to me, that's enough to make it first degree murder, because there was premeditation because you dressed up going into the apartment.
It's alarming how premeditated this was when you drag it that far back in the timeline. Yvonne Kaler's trial began in November of 2016. This is the Luton Crown Court. We have prosecutor John Price, who laid out the Crown's case to the jury of 7 men and 5 women. He detailed the bitter history between the two in the upcoming burglary trial, and stating that Yvonne Kaler's clear motive was to silence the key witness against her. And, I would say probably also seeking some form of revenge here. He showed the jury the CCTV footage, pointing out the crude disguise and the fact that the person was wearing gloves in late May, a clear attempt, he says, to hide their identity from the cameras and potential of fingerprints. Price described how Yvonne Kaler had murdered her sister and then spent 3 hours inside the flat staging the scene, and left with a bag of evidence, though she had missed the crucial blood-stained shards. On December 8th, Yvonne Kaler took the stand in her own defense. Imagine that. If I told you this story, Captain, I know you would wager, Franklin, that this woman would take the stand and deny, right? So
liar, pants on fire. Right?
Yeah, you must be lying because your pants are on fire. When she takes I've been told it's called the witness box. She's hobbling up to the witness stand because she's got a walking stick. She adamantly maintained her innocence, claiming a back injury would have made it impossible for her to overpower her younger sister. She denied ever being in the costume shop. She denied calling a locksmith. She denied returning to Nikki's flat after she was evicted.
She denied all this stuff, even though we have evidence and eyewitnesses. I mean, we have a locksmith saying, yep, that's the lady that told me that she was locked out of her apartment. I'm the one that helped her break in. We have the store owners also saying, this is the lady that came in to buy this costume. It's ridiculous how some of these people can just lie and lie and lie. And I just wonder, I'd love to know what's inside their head. Like, are they thinking, well, if I just lie about this, people are going to believe me? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Makes you think of Casey Anthony a bit, huh?
It
also, great song, Shaggy, It Wasn't Me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't me.
But Casey Anthony, another bitcharoonie dooney.
On December 14th, both sides gave their closing statements. The defense argued the evidence was circumstantial and that analysts that they called had suggested the figure on the CCTV could have been a man. The prosecution countered, quote, that was disingenuous, distasteful deceit by the woman who had entered Ivel Court that morning and murdered her sister, end quote. The jury retired on December 16th after just 7 hours of deliberation. They returned, and on the 19th of December 2016, Yvonne Kaler was found unanimously guilty of the murder of her half-sister, Nikki. 2 days later, on the 21st, the judge handed down her sentence. Appalled by her complete lack of remorse, he looked directly at her and said, quote, "You are a violent, dishonest, deceitful person and ultimately a selfish, heartless killer," end quote. He sentenced her to life in prison with a minimum term of 20 years. And as she was led away, Yvonne Kaler, stone-faced, swore at Nikki's family members in the public gallery. Her family, the very foundation of Nikki's life, had finally seen the truth brought to light and the person responsible for her death held accountable.
Yeah, it's very tragic because Nikki just seemed to want a relationship with family members, and she wanted to help her family members. Like you said, because Kaler went to the States so early in Nikki's life, they didn't have much of a relationship. So I don't think she realized what kind of individual she was getting involved with.
It's 2026. Several years have passed since the jury delivered justice for the murder of Nikki Collingbourne. In her story, a tragic tale of a fractured family bond that began years earlier, spanning 2 continents and culminating in a meticulously planned act of violence. Her killer, wrapped in a disguise but caught on camera, and caught when the plot was foiled by good, solid police work. More than anything, Nikki wanted to be a mom herself, and everyone in her orbit agreed she would have made a great one. But tragically, Nikki would never get the chance to have her own children because of her violent, selfish, and disgusting half-sister Yvonne. And while we cannot bring Nikki back, and she will forever be missed, it is solved cases like this that gives us hope that unsolved homicide cases with perpetrators caught on camera, like the murder of Chelsea Small in November of 2013 in Taylor, Michigan, Missy Beavers in April of 2016 in Midlothian, Texas, and then we have the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse in January of 2006 in Orlando, Florida, as well as the more recent Nancy Guthrie case, reported missing February 1st in Tucson, Arizona, will result in locating the missing women and bringing all offenders to justice.
I want to thank everybody for joining us here in the garage each and every week. Thanks for telling your mother. Thanks for telling your brother. For everything true crime, check out truecrimegarage.com. And Colonel, do you have any recommended reading for the beautiful listeners?
I have some recommended hanging out with your good garage friends. We've talked about this on our most recent episodes. We have an event coming up at Brewdog. They call it Brewdog Columbus, but it's Brewdog Canal Winchester. It's on the outer belt here in central Ohio. That event is scheduled for Saturday, April 18th. Tickets are on sale now, and you can get those tickets on our website, truecrimegarage.com. Do know that the proceeds from the ticket sales will be going to a local charity, to the Porch Light Project here in the state of Ohio. We're trying to help out some families, some victims' families here with that money. So come and hang out with us and know that you're doing a little good along the way. We would love to see you at Brewdog and have a beer and hopefully share a laugh with you as well, and talk about Brian Shaffer's case, who is still missing, and talk about some missing persons investigations as well. And don't forget, we have CrimeCon Las Vegas 2026 coming up as well. Our promo code is TCG to save. I believe you save 10% on that. That's CrimeCon discount. Use our code TCG. And also CrimeCon UK later this year, 2026. Same promo code TCG. And then next year in February, we're going on vacation. We're taking a cruise, Crime Wave 2.0. And it's crimeatsea.com/garage if you want to tell them that your favorite garage guys sent you. Join us at any or all of those hangouts. We can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, and at Crime Wave 2.0, if you use our promo code GARAGE at checkout, you'll get the discount, but you also get a private meet and greet with the colonel and the captain, and we're going to be extra crispy on that cruise.
The crispiest.
And the Brian Shaffer event's going to be great because it's 2 days before my birthday, so it'll be the captain's birthday party as well. Until next week.
Be good, be kind, and don't